You're listening to the Shoot Your Shot podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jen, and we're two boss babes sharing our journey and inspiring you along the way.
And today we are chatting all about lessons learned in the event industry. I'm a photographer and videographer, and Jen runs a mobile bar company. And we've been around the block a few times and had some horror stories and issues that we've had to overcome. So we're just going to share all of our experiences today and what we did to.
Yeah, I'm excited about this because I feel like, not that this is a negative episode by any means, but I think it's going to enlighten our listeners on we all go through challenges and we all go through, I don't want to say issues, but just lessons that we learn from events. And I feel like if we didn't learn them, we would not know how to handle them when they happen the next time and the next time. I hired a coach this year and we were on a call a few days ago, and one of the things that she said was when she had her mobile bar business, she would go into the events knowing that something was going to go wrong. Not in a negative way, but just knowing something's going to go wrong. And I always refer back to my wedding because I was a planner at the time. I planned my wedding to the exact detail. It was a DIY, tent, rented everything, had to bring in all the furniture, all the things. And I still had challenges that came up, and it was how we went with it. One of the challenges, man, I'm having a cough today. One of the things that happened was literally out of our control. Like, you could not have planned for this to happen, but we took our pictures on a chairlift and we went to the top of a mountain, and the chairlift got stuck on the way down.
Really?
We were literally sitting, my future husband, my fiance at the time, because we hadn't got married yet. This was during the first look, which was like 25 minutes from the venue that we got married at.
Oh my gosh.
And him and I are just like, and he's freaking out because he had to say his vows. So we're on the chairlift. We're not even knowing it stopped for as long as it was stopped for, but it was probably stopped for a good 25 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And finally we kind of realized wait a minute, we've kind of been here for a long time. So that delayed our entire ceremony, delayed everything.
Wow, I didn't know about this. I feel like we've talked about your wedding a couple of times on here.
Yeah. So
wow.
Who could have planned for that? But in true Jen form, I'm literally late to everything. So I think the universe was like, you need to be late to your own wedding.
They're like, you're too good. You planned everything too good. We have to throw you a curveball.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so anyway, I wanted to start with that. Literally that could not have been planned.
You said it rained too, right?
So it rained the moment we were stepping onto our bus to go home.
That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy. But so one of the things that I learned in one of my first very large weddings was it's so important to have the communications prior to any type of event, because you might be thinking one thing and your client might be thinking something else. Yeah. So one example was, when we first started, we added a satellite bar option to our events when you had a large wedding. And what we would do is cocktail hour would be the satellite bar, and then the reception would be the trailer, and potentially keeping the satellite bar open. But it was always satellite bar only for cocktail hour, because that way guests have one place to go. They're not going to different locations, not knowing where the second bar is. That just always was how we ran that specific type of events out. Well, it wasn't my first wedding doing the satellite bar. I think it was our third or fourth. Somehow communication got messed up where the client thought the satellite bar would be open and the trailer would be open. And it was a big wedding. It was 150 people. So in her mind, she probably thought that's what we needed
right.
in order to, do a good job. But we have a whole process on our end where we pre-batch the specialty drinks. We get them out and going. We have them lined up on the bar and then lined up behind us so people can just grab and go. So it really helps alleviate the line. Well, the planner comes up to me, and there's 3 bartenders, 3 of us, and I was behind the bar with the girls, and the trailer was closed at this time. So the planner comes up to me and she's like, "Hey Jen, I'm just wondering if the trailer is going to open." Now this is our horse trailer. And I'm like, "Oh, that opens after cocktail hour. We do cocktail hour here." And she's like, "Okay," and kind of walks away timid. And she comes back, and she had gone and talked to the client. And she comes back and she goes, "So we need to open the trailer right now." And I was like, okay. She's like, "The client is really unhappy. She was under the impression that both bars would be open during cocktail hour, blah, 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 blah." So it was thankfully the trailer was ready. Like we set up the trailer first, we set up the satellite bar because we know that we're just going right back into the trailer after.
Yeah.
So it was completely set. The only thing that was not ready, and it did take a while for me to like get this ready, is I had brought all of our serving equipment over to the bar.
Yeah.
Like our shakers, our bar mats, our pourers, like everything we needed to be successful in that area.
Yeah.
So I had to stop, and this was maybe 7 minutes into cocktail hour.
Oh,
like it
no.
just started. And the line at the bar is down the freaking block.
Yeah.
And so I quickly ran over, and we didn't even have an ice bucket in the trailer because we brought everything over to really like be fast paced with that. So anyway, long story short, I now have learned to have that communication with the client and say, okay, this is our expectations. This is what we do, and be on the same page. It ended up being fine. But you know, it did probably give 15 minutes out of cocktail hour where you didn't have a third bartender. So it was like people were probably waiting longer than they probably needed to because of that kind of like challenge.
Right. Oh, that's such a bummer and confusing.
Yeah. But now I learned to have those deeper conversations, because you might be thinking one thing and your client is thinking something else. If you don't have that communication with each other, nobody knows what each other is thinking.
Right.
So that was my first challenge.
For me, when I do that 1 month out or so consultation call, as we've probably chatted about on the podcast before, I set up a Google Doc with them. So I have a template list for all the family photos, template timeline, and then I edit it according to their wedding, and then I make them editors. So it's a Google Doc that they can have and I can have, and they can send the link to a coordinator, to a maid of honor. They can send it to whoever they want to also edit on it. And that's something that I've learned too that's really important, is because then they can, straight from, you know, their lips to my ears, like basically they can tell me exactly what they want. And then, you know, it doesn't have to be like through a coordinator or whatever. Like I will make sure that they enter it in there. And coordinators are fantastic. Like I'm not trying to knock that like too many cooks in the kitchen or anything like that, but it is really helpful to have that consultation call with the couple present, and I'll still do that even if I do have a coordinator that's on the team. I'll make sure that, well, she can be there or they can be there, but I always want to make sure that I'm talking to the couple for at least that 1 month out call to go over all the details, and then have that piece of paper printed out, sent to my second shooter, so it's not, you know, this telephone game of like my second shooter being like, oh, Meghan told me and the coordinator told her and the bride told the coordinator. It's like the bride is telling the second shooter in a way. So like everybody's on the same page. So that's something that I do in my business.
Yeah.
But
I think that's why it's so important to have contracts.
Yeah.
And to have email communication, and not like I mean, we had to do this in corporate, and it's like, please refer to email below. And like
see attached.
Yeah, see attached. Per my communication.
Yeah.
And you know, when you say per, it's like, hello.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously you don't ever want to do that to the client, but if push comes to shove and you're both disagreeing with something, and back to like that first story, like I didn't have the communication. I was under the impression she understood.
Right.
And you can't do that because that's like a he say, she say situation where it's like, okay, well, who's in the wrong? Because I didn't explain it properly to her. She didn't understand it properly. So it was literally, I mean, it was, at the end of the day, it's an error on my end that I didn't do my job properly.
Customer's always right.
You know, Stu Leonard's, that's their slogan.
Oh, is it?
Stu Leonard's is a local grocery store, and their slogan is literally, I did a project on it in communication class in college. But yeah, it's the customer is always right.
Oh, I've never heard that like specifically from a business.
Yeah, you
just
should look at it.
That's
they
like the thing,
have
you know.
Great branding for that.
That's cute.
But and I think it's like rule number 2, like refer to rule number 1.
I love Stu Leonard's.
Oh, they're the best.
Such an experience there.
It really
so
is. If you're local to Connecticut, there's one in Norwalk, one in Danbury.
Really?
Yeah.
I just thought it was the Danbury one.
No.
Or Brookfield, Danbury, whatever.
Norwalk's the original location.
What?
The OG.
I didn't know that. Is it like Carluzzi's where it's like each son like runs their own?
No, I think.
Carluzzi's?
No, I think like no, I don't know.
They just branched out.
I think they just branched out. Yeah. I think they only have one son. I think there's a daughter. I don't know. Anyway.
Another thing that this is just how my brain works. I'm always thinking like worst case scenario, like what could I possibly need to bring with me just in case?
Yeah.
So as a photographer, I'm with a couple all day and I'm noticing things. Like I always have my eyes on them and whoever, because that's what my job is to notice things and take pictures of it. And so I'm sometimes noticing like rips in dresses or stains or, you know, things like that. And so I bring a sewing kit. I don't bring a Tide stick, but now that I'm saying it out loud, I probably should. Or like those shout wipes or something. But I don't just bring my gear. Like I bring a whole bunch of other stuff, a bunch of tape, scissors, sewing kit, water, bobby pins. I had those like little push pins that you use for sewing that you like put in the little tomato thing.
Yep.
I had like a whole box of those, and I was like, oh, this is great. Like I so happy to add this to like my kit. And there was one wedding where the florist dropped off all of the boutonnieres without any pins.
Oh my
and
God.
I was like, don't worry guys, I have all the
got
pins.
this. Oh
and I left them there, and so I need to replenish my pin
Yes.
collection. But that's a huge thing. It's just making sure that you're prepared. And even if it's just like left in your car, like I have rain equipment. I mean, it's a Ziploc bag and a rubber band, but it works for my camera. So there's a bunch of stuff like that I just kind of leave it in the car, or I leave it in a duffel bag, and I just make sure that this is my emergency kit and I'm bringing it with me. And I have had to use it before. I've had bustles break. Sometimes that little piece of thread that like goes over the button is like the you know
Oh, I know.
is like the most fragile little thing on some dresses. It's insane. And one time my second shooter and I, we were shooting, and we were about to go into the first dance or parent dances or something like that, and the bride's dress kept unbustling like during the dance. And then they're going into, it was either, I don't remember, I mean they must have done their first dance first and then the parent dances, so whatever, she was going to go out and dance again. And I was like, quick, go get the sewing kit from my car. And my second shooter was sewing it, and I was using a flashlight and like, talking to the coordinator and making sure that everything was going to be fine. And my second shooter like sat there and like sewed the dress together, because she sewed from where the part got to the button. Like she like didn't bustle it. She like sewed it to like where it needed to be bustled. But like, you never know what's going to happen.
I feel like we need a seamstress on here who does wedding dresses to be like, why
do
you put the tiniest little piece of string?
Like, I know somebody. We're having, okay, next guest.
Because in my dress for my wedding was strapless, and the back was all buttons. Like it had a zip, it had hooks.
Yeah.
Then it had a zipper, but then it had buttons. Yep. And every single button had that like elastic.
Bring a crochet hook with you.
We didn't have one. So luckily someone was like, get a bobby pin. But on the flip side, at the end of the night, I couldn't get out of it. Because
oh my God, I've never thought about that.
Pin. I had a dress change. That's why I'm thinking of this.
Oh, okay.
To put on like just like a lighter, flowier dress.
Yeah.
I'm not bougie where I had to have. Well, I guess I am, because I did have two dresses, but it was like, I think like a $40 dress, my second one. But I could not get out of the first one, and I was like, just cut it out. At that point,
no
it was taking
way.
so long.
I've never thought about that, because that's always such a struggle. Everybody's like, oh, I forgot the crochet hook. And I'm like, don't worry guys, I got one.
Yeah. No.
But I've never thought about how hard it is to probably get out of it. And for brides that don't do a second outfit change, then they go home and it's like, just them and their husband, and he probably doesn't even, he's never seen it before. He probably doesn't know what's going on. Oh my gosh.
True testament to your marriage, the night of your wedding. It was crazy. Yeah. Luckily I did do the second dress, because my maid of honor.
You had people with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So another one that I have is champagne toast and champagne walls. So this has always been a challenge for mobile bars for a few reasons. So in my expertise anyway. So I'm going to use this one specific. So for this event, we had a champagne wall, excuse me. We got the glasses, and I told the bride and groom how much champagne would be needed for the champagne wall. Well, we're setting up the champagne wall. I see all the alcohol. Everything looks good. I usually when I get there, I make sure where's the alcohol? How much do you have? I go back to the list that I gave to them. Yep. Because we don't provide the alcohol. The customer provides it to us.
Yes.
And I give them a shopping list to place the order and have it there for us when we get there. So I forget what the number was, but let's just say it was 15 bottles of champagne. It was a bigger wedding. To do the champagne toast. To do the champagne wall. So we're setting it up. Now this is probably an hour before the wedding was starting, and the champagne wall was for guests to use to come into the wedding to go to the ceremony. So it was before ceremony even started.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're setting it up, and all of a sudden one of the event planners, assistants, comes up to me, and she's like, "Hey, where's the champagne for the champagne toast on the table?" And I'm like, I didn't know there was a champagne toast on the table. Like, we just did the champagne wall. So one, I never asked the bride if they were doing a champagne toast on the tables because I just assumed in my head that they were doing the champagne welcome drink and wouldn't want champagne on the tables too.
Yeah.
Again, lack of air on my
Assumption,
end.
yeah.
I was assuming, which you know what assume spells. Make a ass out of you and me.
No. Wow.
Did you not know that? I learned that I'm not even kidding, in 5th grade. My math teacher put it up on the wall because I think someone was like, I assume this is the answer. And he's like, don't ever assume. And he writes it on the wall and then underlines the first 3 letters because he didn't want to say it in 5th grade. Yeah.
No way. That's funny.
But anyway, so don't ever assume.
Yeah.
So I assumed that they were just doing that. So we're looking at each other and the event planner is like, we have to have champagne on the table. Let's scratch the champagne wall after we had already poured it. It was already poured.
Oh, no. So it wasn't bubbly by the time.
It was like 70% poured. I think we had a few bottles left that we hadn't opened yet. Mm-hmm. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, they paid me for a champagne wall. Like, how am I not going to deliver a champagne wall?
Yeah.
When they paid me for it. So, and the event planner, which totally understandable, she's like, I have champagne glass on the table. It's part of the look of my table. Like, I have to have champagne on the table. And we're like, oh my God, what do we do? So I'm like, let's just go to the liquor store. Or why don't we call the liquor store, see if someone can deliver and
during the ceremony,
and we can pour it, while they're at the ceremony, which ceremony was in a different location at the same venue. It was at Smith Gardens, actually. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we're like, okay, let's go. So they got the, payment from the couple. I think like the mother of the bride or something gave us her card. We called the liquor store, but also thankfully the girl calling the liquor store, because we're still getting ready now. Like this is already taking up too much time from us being ready for the actual
cocktail hour.
Cocktail hour.
Yeah.
So thankfully they were like, we'll call, don't worry about it. So they call, and thank God she was right in front of me. I was like, have them deliver the champagne cold because we're not going to have time to chill it. So luckily, like all of that moving parts happened so quickly.
Whoa. I'm like stressed out thinking about this, listening.
And again, on the flip end, nobody knew.
Yeah.
Not one person knew besides the people involved that any of that happened.
Yeah.
But now I know to ask, even if they have a champagne wall, are you still having a champagne toast on the table? And like another challenge with the champagne toast is who's pouring it, because you don't want the champagne poured too early. You want it poured when it's, still going to be cold for the couple to drink. So if they're not doing speeches until, I don't know, an hour in.
Yeah. Or after dinner. Sometimes it's a random time. Yeah.
Yeah. So we can't leave the bar and pour that.
Right.
So it's like, that's another challenge that we've had in the past. It's like, who's pouring it?
Oh man, so many logistics.
Oh, so many. But again, these are like challenges that unfortunately you have to learn.
Yep.
And be in that situation in order to overcome the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, champagne stresses me out though.
It's stuff that you're
hate champagne toast.
I know you've mentioned it before.
I just think they always get warm, and it's like, why? Okay, you take one sip, you're wasting your money.
Only like half of the people actually like champagne too. A lot of people won't even do the toast. They'll just
maybe they'll
clap.
take a sip and then go back to their drink.
Yeah.
Like if you're not a champagne drinker, you're not going to drink the whole glass.
No.
Like I get it. It does elevate the atmosphere. It elevates the experience.
Beautiful photos.
I'm all about a bride and groom champagne toast, but I just don't, especially if you have such a big wedding, like as an expense for the couple.
Huge expense.
It's huge because one bottle of champagne only fills like 4 glasses.
Oh,
so
really?
To make it look pretty on the table.
Yeah.
You could probably get 5 to 6, but then you're pouring it like halfway and it just looks stupid. It looks like a shot on the table.
Yeah. It's already a tiny glass.
Yeah. Exactly.
We should do champagne shots.
Yeah. Ooh.
Tiny little shot glasses instead. That's just like blip, blip. You could probably do like 20.
Yes. Oh, I love that. All right. Any of my couples listening
Champagne
right now,
shots.
Champagne shots. Oh my God. Now I want to do a reel of this. I think we just sparked a new trend. So what else do you have? Do you have another one?
Well, on the same lines of being prepared as a photographer, like the equipment is a huge thing too. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always prepared with my equipment. I have extra batteries on batteries on batteries and SD cards on SD cards and SD cards. And that's a huge thing, is making sure that you have everything you need to prep yourself to be like, what could go wrong? Possibly could go wrong. Like, think about like literally what could go wrong, anything on the list, and be prepared for it. So even when I'm just doing engagement sessions or something like that, where it's just an hour long and I'm like, nothing could happen, I still bring 2 camera bodies and 2 lenses and like 4 batteries and like so many SD cards and my flash, even though we're going to be outside in the sun. It's like, you never know. And sometimes I've needed it. Like, I've been at Hartford City Hall and we're, in this dark little corner, and I'm like, do you guys like the look of flash? Do you want to do a little something? Because this looks horrible. And, like, you never know where you might come across something and think that there's no way I could possibly need this, but I'll bring it anyway. So, yeah, actually there was this one time, made me think of it because I was at Hartford City Hall. Thankfully nothing happened, but I tripped at the shoot and my camera was like on the floor. I tripped running up the stairs. I like posed them in front of this nice window and I was like, all right, you guys just stay there and I'm going to move around the space, but just keep chatting to each other. And I was like running because I didn't want to waste their time. They were with me for an hour and I wanted to make sure I could get it from this angle and this angle and over here. And so I was running and I like tripped up the stairs, and I have this camera harness. So my camera was like down at my waist and sometimes it's like in front of my body. And so when I fell, it was like my lens, and it also was like pretty fat lens, like the size of my forearm, just like slam on the ground, like marble floors, like terrible. And it was this horrible sound, but thankfully nothing happened, because guess what, I was prepared and I have protective covers over all of my lenses as well. And so even if that had shattered, I would have been fine and I could have just taken it off and kept shooting. But anyway, that's another thing for me, is being prepared for like the wedding and like anything that could happen like unrelated to you, but also with yourself. If you're a photographer, videographer, and you need mics, like when I'm doing videography for weddings, I bring 2 sets of mics, even though I don't need 4. I only need 2, but I bring 4 because you never know. So all of that is huge. Or power outage. Oh my gosh, I recently was at a wedding where there was a huge power outage.
Oh my God.
And pouring rain, and that's why we lost power. Rain, wind, ceremony got moved inside. It was this hotel, like banquet hall, like conference center kind of vibe. And so the room we were in wasn't like a drop dead gorgeous room, no windows. And
none at all.
There was like this courtyard that we were next to. So it was like there were walls of windows on the side. But it was like a courtyard, so like it was really dark because the light could not get in there anyway, even with the minimal light that there was, because it was pouring rain and like 4:00 in the afternoon in like early spring, late winter. This was in March. And so it was super dark in there and no lights even in the room because they lost power just as she was zipping into her dress. And I was second shooting, but I was shooting photo for a photo video husband-wife duo. And they were like, I mean, we have our lights, but we need them for the whole reception and the batteries are going to die eventually. And like I was planning to plug them in, and charge them.
So the entire hotel has no power.
The entire hotel has no power.
Oh my gosh. They didn't have excuse me, I used to work for a hotel. Like we had backup generators that would kick on as soon as it.
I mean, maybe they did and like they just hadn't turned on yet or something. We were out of power for probably like an hour, and then it came on right before she walked down the aisle. It was crazy. But we were getting ready for the ceremony, like, what are we going to do? And luckily the DJ was prepared. The DJ didn't need to be hooked up to anything at all. She was like, I can go off my batteries. I'm good for the whole night. And we were like, you're amazing. How? But like, that's a huge thing too. Like, what if your DJ comes and there's no outlets for him, or you lose power and there's no music, or there's no lights and your video is all black? Like, what are you going to do? So I'm always prepared with that too. I bring extra batteries because that was crazy. That was something I had never thought of before that happened. And we're like 3 years into this. I have never experienced a power outage at a wedding before.
No,
I just like just never thought it would happen. But living where we live, like we have crazy hurricanes and storms all the time. So had to happen sooner or later. And luckily everything did work out and the power came back on. But
Just
that
to,
was
like,
crazy.
go off of, living in different areas. It's really interesting to hear like different scenarios for different locations. So
yeah.
I'm currently helping my friend Devin, my friend, excuse me, plan a conference. She's working a conference in Florida,
right? Yeah.
And we're going through communications, and one of the vendors that we have is an illustrator who's going to like draw, throughout the event.
Cool.
And it's outside on the beach, beautiful, whatever. So one of the questions we had to ask her was, what type of lighting are you bringing in? Because it's turtle season. And apparently you can only have a certain type of light, like it's called an amber light or a soft white light or something. Because if you have anything too bright, the turtles will come up to the beach and come up to, and get hurt and all those things. So you can only have, like, the entire event has to go through the lighting through their in-house AV team. They have these things they're called like air stars, which are these big globes that are on a stand and they're amber lit. So it's like that like warm, like, you know what color I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So you can only have those outside on the beach. So it's like, who would have ever thought that? Like when Devin told me, she was like, oh, just be aware it's turtle season. We can only have a certain type of light. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? But I'm sure that there's like rules and, restrictions for vendors in Florida during turtle season for weddings and, clearly weddings and events.
Wow. Yeah.
But like, you would never know that.
Yeah.
So like, what if you're like an out of town, let's just say DJ, and you don't ask the right questions?
Yeah.
And you have, because we have a band and the band can't have bright lights on them.
Yeah.
So it's like all these things that you're just like, oh my God, wow. Like what?
Never would have thought of that.
Never would have thought
Turtles
of that.
are not like,
like
we
deer.
love turtles.
Deer
and the turkeys are our thing.
I literally saw a turkey driving in today.
The turkey was driving?
The turkey was not driving. He was on the side of the road, but he like waddled across.
Yeah, we have a lot of turkeys here.
We do have
on this street.
God.
And deer and possums and raccoons. What's
Who
next on
would've
your
thought?
list?
Who would have thought? Okay, so next, I have a few, and I'm like, I don't want to take too much time talking about these, but okay. I'm gonna talk about ice because ice is always a huge thing for mobile bars, and caterers, and I'm sure other vendors. So I always overly order ice. The rule of thumb for mobile bars is 2 pounds per person. No matter what size event, well,
that sounds like a lot to me.
It sounds like
but
I
I don't know anything. So,
but that's basically a 4 to 5-ish hour wedding, let's say. But for like a small backyard party, now I can gauge how much we need and stuff like that after, over ordering a lot. But 2 pounds per person for a wedding is like kind of standard. So yeah, if you have 150 people, that's 300 pounds of ice. Did I do the math right on that? That's a lot of freaking ice.
Yeah.
So this was actually the same wedding with the 2 satellite bars.
Okay.
And what happened was they had more beer than we had anticipated. So we wanted to get some of the beer cold. Again, this was 2 years ago. So still new to the business, still really not like understanding the full logistics of a huge event with 2 setup locations. And we ended up putting more ice on the beer than we needed to. What I do now is I don't know why this tickle is like, hold on.
I have one too. I've been like trying to drink the water. I don't know.
I'm going to blame allergies.
Continue. Yeah, maybe. Windows are open. Sorry.
Yeah. And so what I've learned now is you say they have a case or multiple cases of different types of beer, put like 1 to 2 cases on ice and then replenish during the event. Like obviously don't have the beer sitting in the sun, like have it in a shaded area, but it does not all need to be on ice. Beer typically gets cold within like a half hour to 40 minutes. Plus if it's going into a cold cooler, it gets cold faster. Well, we ended up putting almost like all of the beer on ice, which was not the right move at all because nobody even drank it all. And we used way too much ice for the beer. Then it was at a winery, so they had a lot of wine too. Plus they had wine for table service, red and white obviously needs to get cold. So I didn't account for that. So we had 2 locations plus the wine that needed to be cold for the servers to pour tableside during dinner.
Okay.
So more ice that we used. We ran out of ice during cocktail hour.
And you had overbought ice?
Not
Or
for this one.
okay.
I did like what I think I did. I did not buy 2 pounds per person at that time. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I wasn't going with my own rule of thumb. I think because I just thought 300 pounds, that's ridiculous. That's crazy.
Maybe.
But I don't think this was like one of our very first weddings of that size. And it was like one of the hottest days ever. So again, your ice is melting.
Yeah.
So I always find out where the closest gas station is. And I try like on my way and I try to see if they have ice. Just to make sure that we have this backup plan.
Yeah. Oh, that's so smart.
And there's only been like one event or 2 events where we've only had one bartender and like we're like close to running out. And this is towards the end. So it's always been fine. We've always had multiple bartenders for these events.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm freaking out at this point. It's like cocktail hour is almost done. I don't even know how many we had left at this point, but I was like, this is not going to get us through the next 4 hours. We had 4 more hours. It was a 5-hour wedding. So luckily it was on a property, on a vineyard that had an ice machine with bagged ice. I was like, no freaking way. Cause I went to the venue owner and I was like, hey, what's the closest gas station? We have to go out and get more ice. And he's like, oh, we have ice here. I was like, God just sent me a sign from the universe that the universe is on my side. So we ended up ordering like all of their ice. Like we literally like cleared them out.
Wow.
But it's just crazy. Like and again, we learned what to do, what not to do, things like that. Another rule that I learned from my mobile bar coach recently was she brings garbage cans and lines them and puts all the extra ice in there so that you're not bringing extra coolers that you don't really need to bring. You could bring like 2 bins of 2, clean, nice garbage bins, line them with like either a cold blanket or whatever, and just have them in a shaded area. So you could reuse that for ice throughout. So yeah, that was a good thing because we have a 300 person wedding this year. I think it's down to like 280 now.
Wow.
Yeah. Both trailers plus satellite bar.
Wow. So you're gonna have 3 bars?
3 bars.
Wow.
Yes. I think we have 6 bartenders. Yeah. 2, 4, 6. Yeah. So it's going to be crazy.
Wow.
So I will be using the garbage.
That's a huge day.
Yeah. For that one.
Are you excited? Are you nervous?
Tell
Tell me about
8th.
it.
Oh my God. It's June 8th. I'm very excited. This was like the vision for the vintage horse was to be able to use both trailers, multiple times, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I actually just got a lead for the 7th, which is the Friday before. And I'm like, please don't book. I can't say no. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I should say no to this one and set myself up for success because not only do I have to bring one trailer the night before, bring the next one the next day, then, that night we have to figure out logistics, if I can leave one there, blah, blah, blah. And my husband's going away. So I don't even have him to help me with the trailers, which was my
the kids.
And the kids and all that. He's bringing one of the kids.
So many moving pieces.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So we shall see about that. But yeah,
crossing my fingers and toes for you. But that sounds really exciting.
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah. The bride's awesome. It's going to be great. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Wow.
So we shall see. But yeah, that's
awesome.
Every mobile bar is always worried about ice, and it's just something that like I'm actually buying an ice chest this year just to put in my like cellar. Because I throw away so much ice because we over order and it's not going to last a week in the, in the coolers. So yeah, I'm buying one this year.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Just a
good idea.
Yeah. So ice.
Your ice is like my SD cards after starting videography, especially now for these days that are photo and video. And I have 3 girls that are coming with me, or boys, whatever, 3 people coming with me to help shoot. It's like I'm prepping all of my SD cards and all my equipment and stuff the day before, and realizing how many SD cards I need is insane. And photographers don't understand. Not to exclude anybody, but like with video, just you go through things so much faster because the files are so much bigger. And all of my cameras, like I shoot on, I have second shooters that use a lot of their own equipment, of course, but there's so many more cameras that need to be rolling for video. Like I have 2 tripods set up for the ceremony and 2 shooters shooting plus me and a second photographer. And so all of these extra cameras are my own. And so I need 2 cards per camera. And it just ends up being like this mountain of SD cards. I need 16 cards for my last wedding. It's like, that's insane. And each SD card is, depending on how large it is like $20 to $35.
Wow.
16 of them.
Yeah.
But like, I need it because in case one card gets corrupted, I need the duplicate from the other SD card. So I can't just shoot with one.
So you shoot with 2 at all times.
I shoot with 2 in each camera all times. And so when I have a second shooter, that's not so bad because I give them an SD card that's mine. They shoot on one that's theirs. So they have 2 copies. They go home with a copy and I go home with a copy. And that works out really well.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Yeah, it works out really well. So they can use it for their own portfolio and I can use it for the gallery.
Yeah.
But for my own cameras, for like those 2 tripods or for the first dance camera on a tripod, that kind of thing, the speeches, those are 30-minute videos, multiple. And that takes up just so much freaking storage.
I have a question.
It's crazy.
How do you organize it? Like, obviously I'm assuming, or maybe I shouldn't assume, but all SD cards look the same.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, I buy mostly the same.
Okay.
ones,
So
yeah.
do you have a case and you like label it?
Yeah, I do. This little box right here.
Okay.
I think the camera shut off, so you guys probably can't see if you're on YouTube. But I have this little case here, and there's I have a pill container, like a little medicine pill container.
Got it.
And so for each wedding, I throw them in a different little box, and then I have Post-it notes, and I just write down the couple's name and put it on top of the stack of SD cards. I'll pull it out so that you can see because there's so many of them.
Ceremony, reception.
No, I do that with
I
do that within my hard drive. So when I back up all the photos and videos, when I come home, I'll make a photo folder and a video folder. And then within the video folder, I organize everything for ceremony, getting ready, details, B-roll, speeches, so that when I'm going to edit, I can go find everything.
Easy, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then
Makes
sometimes,
sense.
and I just got into this year. I didn't do this last year, and I really liked it for the past 2 weddings I did. We're recording, right?
Yes.
You scared me. There's been so many times where we've push record and I've not actually pushed record, and I thought I did. And you gave me like a side eye looking at the recorder. I was like, don't do this to me. But when I was sorting all of the photos and videos, I renamed the file name with the shooter's name. So I wrote like Meghan 1 2 3 4 5 whatever.
Got it. Okay.
And so on with all of my different shooters so that I could remember who was who, because sometimes I'm looking for, I know Vanity was here for this one moment. I need to go back and look at Vanity stuff, but then I can't find it because I can't figure out like where she was standing and like I can't remember. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
a lot. You got to be
that's my
organized
process.
as a
You
business
do.
owner. You really do. There's just so many like little things that you don't think of. But again,
it's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, but it's also like a whole trial and error thing. Like not trial and error, because obviously you don't want errors to happen at your events, but I think it's as long as you can go into the event and in your head know something's going to happen and this is how I'm going to handle the situation when it does happen. Yeah. Like you said, almost go in knowing
think about what the worst thing that could happen could be.
Yeah. And how are you going to solve the problem?
Yeah. And you do that by checking in at the gas station before the event. Like, that's so smart. That's so smart.
And yeah, you have to know, like, that's the number one. And even for like juices, like if I run out of, let's say it's a really heavy, like Diet Coke drinking crowd and I didn't accommodate for that.
Oh gosh, are you okay?
I don't know. I never have allergies.
Yeah. My throat's like a little tickly
We're
too.
dying over here. We're ready for summer.
Oh, no, thank you.
You don't like warm?
No.
Meghan, we can't be friends.
No, I hate the heat.
I'm a summer girl through and through.
No, I'll like throw up. Not my thing.
What? That's why you want to move to Alaska?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
That's the reason why. It's one of the reasons why.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Last one that I want to talk about. Well, I'm going to talk about 2. One is a quick one. And this was just something that reaffirmed why I do specialty drinks at events and weddings specifically. Specialty drinks create, and this is kind of like what my business is raised on, is specialty drinks really create an experience. When you go to a restaurant, let's say a tequila bar, like you're probably going to order a margarita. You would not make that at home unless you're a big margarita drinker. If you're just going to a friend's house, like you're probably not going to have that fun experience of like a specialty cocktail.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that, and I know from experience doing this business for this long, that people really, really enjoy something different. And if you can do that in like a fun way for your bar, it is just, people really, really enjoy it. And a lot, I do see a lot of people come up and like, oh, I don't really want anything like fruity or too sugary. Everyone, you know, does not want sugars anymore. But I think during weddings and events, people let loose more than they would normally.
They celebrate.
They celebrate.
Yeah.
And a lot of our drinks have club soda, and they're more refreshing because, you know, our summer, back to the heat, a lot of our events are, you know, during the warmer weather. So
unfortunately
people want
for me.
that you're in the wrong business, girl. No, I'm kidding.
Continue.
And they, you know, they want that refreshing kind of just like summery spritzer type of cocktail.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of not as sweet drinks, but back to my story. So I had one of our first weddings at a venue. This beautiful venue. I forget where it is, but I went to a wedding there personally, and I've done only one event there. I'm like, can I please do another one? I have to tell you the venue. It's gorgeous. I cannot think of the name of it, but they have a peacock on property.
Oh, you mentioned this in the last episode.
Yeah.
They were the one with the dumpsters.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
I remember.
Okay. So
You'll have to
same
look it up.
wedding. Yeah. We have to look it up. Same wedding. Devin got married there. I cannot think of the name of it. Oh my God. Anyway, the bride really just didn't care for a specialty drink. She was like, it's not really our thing, you know, whatever. And I knew that it was going to create a level of that premium experience for the guests that were at the wedding. So even though she didn't want one, she did have apple cider as like a welcome option for guests to, non-alcoholic, for guests to drink.
Okay.
And I took it upon myself to add the apple cider margarita as a specialty drink. I didn't even tell her I was doing it. I was like, I'm just going to add this for you because I know as the professional, and that could be something that like she could have been like, I told you we didn't want that. But I never got that vibe from her. She was just like, like adding this as an additional expense doesn't make sense to us because like we don't really, you know, it's not really our thing. But I took it upon myself to complimentary add it for her. And to this day, she comments, because apple cider margarita is like our fall drink, always. To this day, if I post anything, she goes, I should have listened to you.
Oh.
She goes, you made the right decision. It totally like changed our bar experience for our guests. And that's the thing as the professional that you have to go in. You have to know like, okay, you're the professional in this scenario. You need to do what you feel is right. Like, obviously not going against any client's wishes. Like, I wouldn't do something.
If she was really adamantly like, I don't want it.
She was like, I do not. I think it was and I don't know this, but it was probably a cost thing. You know, if
it kind of sounded like she couldn't really care.
Hundreds of dollars for something that really doesn't make sense to them. But she, to this day, she's like, Jen, you absolutely, and she had a horror story. Her original bar ended up, I don't know if they were booked during COVID or like right after COVID, but her original bar closed down. It was like a add-on to a liquor store that this liquor store started a mobile bar business, and they ended up stopping. And so she was out of a bar with less than a year. God, I think it was like 6 months out that she booked me, maybe even less than that actually. And so like already she had stress around the bar. Yeah. So for me to be able to elevate this experience for her and you know, all the things, it really did not cost too much extra on my end because she already had the apple cider, which she was, you know, charged for. But I just think it's like that extra level of satisfaction that like, and then coming out of it and being like, thank you for doing that was just like such a great reward and feeling on our end.
Oh, that's such a nice story.
Yeah. Okay. And then the last one, and then I don't, do you have one more? Do you want to go for one more?
We'll see if something pops up in my head.
Sparks here. Okay, the last one, and I think we have talked about this before, but I can't leave this episode without talking about this. So my truck broke down at an event. I tell you this? Have we talked about this before?
I think a long time ago.
Yeah,
so we might not have the same listeners. So go for it.
I think everyone's like horror story is like your car breaking down going somewhere.
Yeah.
But my car.
Oh my God. I think about that all the time too, because I'm like, that's like my worst case scenario that I don't have a workaround for. Yeah. What am I going to do? Call my boyfriend?
I mean, call Uber. And like, I can't Uber a horse trailer.
No, you can't.
Like that is not happening.
No.
So my truck literally pulls my business.
That's like one of my biggest fears.
Okay. die. Well, knock on wood.
Yeah.
We now have a new truck. Let's just talk about that.
Oh, congrats.
And that was, the one that I've had for a while. We had a white one prior to this one.
Oh, okay.
And the white one was, it was a very not cheap. It was very expensive, but it was a cheaper truck. It was an older model. It was we were just starting, we had to figure it out.
Yep.
We had to buy an expense that we did not have the money for at the time. So 2 days before the event, or maybe it was the day before, the truck sounded weird when it was starting. And I was like, oh God, what is this? So I talked to my husband and he was like, just keep an eye on it kind of thing. I'm like, okay. So the morning of, it did it again, but I had no other option at that time.
Right.
I am going to my event. So I start the truck to go to the event. It starts fine. I'm like, okay, maybe that was just a weird thing happening, whatever. So I get to the event. Now this specific event, go figure, is in a backyard at a farm at someone's property. And it's on the most gigantic hill I've ever seen in a backyard, ever. People walking down to where I ended up parking the trailer were literally stopping themselves from running because that's how steep it was.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So I park at the bottom of the hill.
Okay.
It had rained 4 days before this. So the grass was very wet.
It's coming back to me.
It was muddy, all the things. So
yeah.
the way that the truck and the trailer were, I didn't feel comfortable taking it off of the truck because it was kind of just on a little bit of a slant and I just didn't feel comfortable. So we kept it on the truck.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was the better move or the worst
Probably
move,
better. You probably wouldn't have been able to get it back on. Maybe. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
The horror story because
yeah.
we ended up having to take it off anyway. So the event goes fine. Everything's done. We're cleaning up. My other bartender is about to leave. I go to start the truck. No, because the truck was on. Was on the trailer. It was attached the whole entire event. So I never had to turn the truck on for anything. But usually, I would turn it on earlier to bring it over to load it up and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're everything's done. We're ready to go. I go to get in the truck and it won't start. Will not start at all. And I'm so we thought the battery died. So my other bartender had a battery pack thing, jumper cables in her car. So she goes and gets that. Nothing's happening. I'm okay. Now, again, this is in someone else's yard. So we call AAA. Thankfully, I have AAA.
Mm-hmm.
AAA comes. We get my truck off the trailer. We put it in neutral. Move it up, move it back. We did this whole thing. We get the truck onto the AAA bed of his truck.
Mm-hmm.
He gets stuck going up the hill. He's tearing up my client's yard. All I see is grass coming up, mud shooting everywhere, all the things. I'm mortified at this point because I'm literally tearing up her yard. And she was such an amazing, amazing client. So AAA gets stuck. I have to go get my grandfather's truck. And I have to pull AAA out with my grandfather's truck. I'm not even kidding. You cannot make this up. There's a chain attached to my truck to the AAA truck. I'm pulling it out.
With your truck on top of it.
With my truck on top of the AAA truck. Yes, all the things. And then the icing on all of this. So he gets out finally. The icing on the cake of all of this is the AAA guy hits on me at the end of all this.
I remember this.
And asks me for my phone number. And I'm sweating profusely. I'm in the verge of tears because I just tore up my entire client's lawn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally I just have no words for anything. And he's can I get your number and take you out for dinner? And I'm I'm married with 2 kids, first of all, number one. Number 2, no, you cannot. And so I tell my client just to break the ice, and they're all laughing again. They were such troopers. And she goes, he's probably never seen a badass pull a truck out of the whole scenario.
Yeah.
And it's just I can't believe all of this just went and happened.
Oh my
But that was
gosh.
my biggest horror story. So I think if I can get through that, I can literally get through anything.
You can.
Anything.
It's so funny to picture you pulling the AAA truck, pulling your truck.
Apparently
with your
AAA
trailer just in the background.
Yeah.
Just
AAA trucks, they're meant for the road. They're not meant for this. So they don't have 4-wheel drive, which is absurd to me. But you would think the heaviness of my truck on the bed would have helped. But no, it was the tires were just spinning. And it's God, it's all coming back to me like a horror story right now. But yeah, that was my biggest
Crazy.
biggest challenge, and we got through it.
You got
And
through
she's
it.
so nice. She still comments like on my stuff. I wonder if I don't know if she listens to this podcast, but if she did, she knows who I'm talking about. Let's call it that. But yeah, that's the fun thing about entrepreneurship. You just have to go with the flow and smile. Like,
Yeah.
I was just smiling and on the verge of tears, but never let him see you cry.
That's probably why he hit on you. He said she has a great smile. She's a great smile, and she saved the day.
And
She saved me.
my ass.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. We never talked about like groomsmen. You ever have people like groomsmen or guests, I guess, at the bar, like hitting on your bartenders?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. But I think
We
as a
never talked about
bartender-
that.
Yeah, I think as a bartender, you're kind of just like
Yeah.
equipped to it, and some people don't even care that you have a ring on your finger. Like, they don't even care about any of that. We're just nice at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but all the time. But I think all of my girls, it's so funny. My college roommate, who's like my main bartender, she has complete resting bitch face. And I'm like, Brittany, you need to look nicer. Like, we're best friends. Like, I love her to death. And she says it all the time too. And she's like, what? Like, they just said the wrong thing. And my face just said how I was feeling. I was like, Brittany, you can't do that. But yeah, it's very interesting, some of the conversations we have behind the bar. But we love it. We love it. It's stories that we tell later.
Yeah.
So that's my wrap up for today. Those are some of my interesting stories. But now, I don't know if it's going to be next episode, but we are looking for a financial advisor.
Yeah.
So if you know anyone who is in the finance industry and wants to be on our podcast, let us know, because I secretly need this personally for myself.
We did a great one around tax season, but it would be really good for me too, I think, to do like a really simple 101.
Yeah.
Like step 1.
Yeah.
Step
like
2,
one of
step
my
3.
biggest things is like coming from a corporate background, like my 401k right now that I've had for 14 years is just in la la land. And my husband's like, what are you doing with this? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just there. It's like, I know where it is. It's in T. Rowe Price or whatever, but it's not doing anything. It's not, it's not making money, which is what your 401k is supposed to do, all the things. And like, so that's what I need. Like, I need someone to be like, this is what you need to do. So we need to find someone.
Yeah. Okay.
With that. So if you know someone, let us know.
Also, the bridal shop. I think you mentioned that in the episode. I think that's a great idea. Yeah. The bridal attendant that's coming for my styled shoot at the end of the month, she's amazing. So
perfect.
I'm gonna get in touch with her because that would be really fun. I want to hear her stories. I want to hear. That's like a whole different side of like the wedding industry that I don't really connect with that much. It's like we only see people that day, and I don't know. That could just be really interesting. I have like a lot of questions about.
We'll save this for that episode, but I have the craziest story when I was at my bridal shop and my girls were trying on their bridesmaid dresses. Let's just preference. One of my sister-in-law came down into town the night before, and we went out and I drank way too much. So we were literally in episodes. Did you ever watch the movie Bridesmaids?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, we were an episode of that. It was insane. So we'll save that for
all right,
that episode, but Horror Story 101. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in today. We hope this episode was fun and exciting, and we'll
see you in 2
soon.
weeks.
Yay! Cheers.
Cheers.